Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with an absolutely wonderful recording I've been meaning to talk about for when did it come out? I don't know, like years and years ago? Well, not that many years ago, possibly. There should be a date here. Where is the date? 2023. Okay, so it's not that old. Thank God. I've got so many things to talk about, but the reason I haven't talked about this recording yet, and I'll just tell you what it is. It's contemporary Czech harpsichord concertos. How's that for a little niche in the classical music world? Wonderfully performed by Mahan Esfahani and the Prague Radio Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Alexander Liebreich on Hyperion Records. Why did I wait so long? Well, the truth of the matter is I love harpsichord concertos. I love modern harpsichord concertos. I really think the harpsichord came into its own in the 20th century as a solo instrument. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful, strange-sounding instrument that does all kinds of cool things in connection with the modern orchestra, with strange concatenations of instruments. And it's just a fantastic repertoire. It really is. And I wanted to savor this myself, I talk about these things all the time. Sometimes I just listen to something and then I talk to you about it. It's a job. But there are some things that I regard as kind of personal, and I want to live with them and enjoy them and then talk about them, let it all soak in and permeate my being and then deal with it, because this is just an amazingly fine record. It contains three really iconic works for harpsichord. It's strange that they all came out of the Czech Republic. I mean, that's a weird thing. Frank Martin in Switzerland was doing some things. Poulenc was doing some things. But here we have, first of all, the Martinů harpsichord concerto, which is the earliest of the bunch. I mean, Martinů would have written a concerto for just about anything. And this one also has a piano part, which is really weird. And kind of fascinating. The actual ensembles, they tell you what they are, and it's worth pointing out what they are actually, because it kind of helps. Because as you know, the harpsichord is a very difficult piece to balance. It really is. And so you want to know, what the composers were doing. And so up here it is. It's written for, violin 1, 2, and 3, viola, cello, double bass, flute, bassoon, and piano. That's the ensemble, and the members of the Prague Radio Symphony Orchestra they're all playing solo. None of the string parts are doubled. So you have this wonderful chamber music like Transparency that works really, really well. Unlike when it's very funny. I mean, it's a question of intention. When the period instrument people do chamber music like, things, often it just sounds awful. It sounds thin. You need more instruments, because composers back in the day wanted more instruments. They didn't care if lines were doubled and things like that happened. I'll never forget seeing Trevor Pinnock do the Bach D minor harpsichord concerto, the big one, at Berkeley. And they only had a very slender, as he said, sounding harpsichord. So they did it with one string to a part. This enormous auditorium, it just sounded terrible. I mean, partly it was the acoustic, it was the room, but the whole concept. I mean, you need a beefier string sound in that opening ritornello. Da-da-dum-bum-bum-bum-ba, da-da-da-da-da, that sort of thing. It just didn't work. Didn't work at all. But technically, you could do it with one string to a part. It's done that way sometimes. Blah. Here, you're talking about composers who've really taken time to think about matters of balance and blend, and so it works. It works when you do it that way. I mean, again, you could double the strings if you wanted. I mean, the other recordings of these pieces, I think, use a few extra strings here or there, but essentially, you're in good shape if you do it that way. So anyway, that's just me blathering and pontificating, and you'll all disagree and whatever, but it doesn't matter. The fascinating thing is that the Martinů is a wonderful piece. A terrific piece. It deserves to be played. It sounds like Martinů. It's charming. Next, we've got Krása, Hans Krása, who, as you know, was interned at Theresienstadt and finally killed at Auschwitz. And, he was a wonderful composer. And this piece dates from his avant-garde phase in 1934, before he was interned in Theresienstadt in 1942. It's Kammermusik for harpsichord and 7 instruments. much like Hindemith's Kammermusik series, for a strange ensemble of instruments. The 7 instruments are cello, let's see if I can do this right, cello, bass, regular clarinet, E-flat clarinet, bass clarinet, saxophone, and trumpet. Certainly an eclectic mixture, but one which allows all kinds of possibilities to fool around with the sound of the harpsichord and to blend and mix and accompany. And it's just fascinating from a sonority point of view and really ear-catching in so many ways. And last but not least, one of the absolute masterpieces for harpsichord and strings. This is just harpsichord and strings. And let me see how many strings they use. And you could use sort of more strings than less in this piece, but it's still, I think they've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 violin, 4 first, 2 seconds, 2 violas, 2 cellos, and double bass. That gets about fine for a small string ensemble. And this is the Victor Kalabis harpsichord concerto, which he wrote for his wife, the great Czech harpsichordist Zuzana Růžičková. And Růžičková recorded it, of course, and it's been recorded surprising number of times, several times. And it's an absolutely outstanding piece of music. It's a little bit elusive melodically, but it's one of the pieces where you feel the intent behind the notes. In other words, everything has been calculated. I don't mean it sounds, affected or somehow, pedantic or anything like that. No, but it sounds intentional. You know that the composer lives and loves a harpsichordist and has written a piece of music that exploits his love for the instrument and his love for the person playing the instrument in a completely musical way, in a way that challenges the soloist, that allows for fascinating textural combinations, even though the accompanying ensemble is nothing but strings. Because, the strings provide the sustaining quality, the sostenuto, the cantabile, that only comes with difficulty to the harpsichord. And that's what you need to think about when you listen to it, how the two bodies, complement each other, and where, the harpsichord gives pinpoint precision and rhythm and crispness, and the strings are providing more flowing, long-breathed sounds, and you put the two things together, and it's magical. It really is. It's a piece that at first sounds quite elusive, but you listen to it a few times, and it all just clicks. It's just tremendous. So anyway, this is a beautiful, beautiful disc by Mahan Esfahani, who was himself a pupil of Zuzana Růžičková, and I can't recommend it highly enough for people who care about good, interesting, creative, all the things that we want in contemporary music, something that's new but also has enough older elements to hang your hat on, to give you an entree into its world, and it's glorious, absolutely glorious. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.